here and joining us this morning. Um, I just want to welcome you to participate. I may ask questions, or if you have any comments, you can place it in the chat. We also have like a hand raise feature, and you're more than welcome to use that. I'll do my best. I do have my support to kind of help me in case I don't see it or in case I don't catch it, especially because I'm not able to see all of your faces at once, just a couple of you. So I'll do my best to kind of check in with the chat in case there's any comments or questions that I can answer, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and get started. We are today talking about a very important topic, the effects of early childhood trauma, which we may have experienced ourselves, or if you have children, they may have experienced some of these things. So I hope that you enjoy it, and I welcome your participation. Okay, so a couple of things about me. Again, my name is Cristionne Barbarin. I typically go by Chris just because it's a little bit easier for people to pronounce. I am a Cal State Long Beach grad. I have both my undergrad and graduate degree there at Long Beach. My undergrad is in psychology and my graduate degree is in social work. And so I started out primarily working with children. I've done ABA therapy, which is like kids who are on the autism spectrum. I did some mentoring in junior high school, some mental health in elementary schools for a while, doing some counseling and working with teachers and parents and children. And then I kind of moved a little bit towards the medical field. I did a little bit of time in hospice, and then I moved to the ER. Where we see a lot of like severely mentally ill patients, ones who come in with, some suicidal, homicidal ideation, or they may have like some psychiatric symptoms, like, auditory hallucinations, things like that. We see a lot of substance use and homelessness in the ER as well. And just one quick interesting fact about me. I love to dance. It's like one of my hobbies. It's been a while since I've been into it and I miss it dearly. And that's honestly one thing that we'll probably talk about later, like as far as a great coping skill. So a little bit about Fuller Life Concepts. Our mission is to remove barriers to high quality health and wellness services and improve the lives of women and children in their relationships and with themselves and with others. And so some of the things that we offer are individual sessions, family sessions, couple sessions. We focus a lot on anxiety and depression. Right now, we're offering telehealth sessions, which is virtual, kind of how we're doing right now. And hopefully when this COVID kind of subsides, we go back into, I know we're doing a little bit of in person, but we'll go back to some office sessions and things like that. Our providers are specially trained to work with children and adolescents. And then we accept some various insurances, but we accept private pay and also victims of crime. And we also provide free consultation. So usually that's about 20 to 30 minutes. You can call us or we can do a video, conference like this as well to talk about what are some of the issues that you may be experiencing, and how we might be able to help. And again, that's free. And we can talk about that a little bit later towards the end. If you feel like after, seeing this workshop, being a part of this, you feel like therapy is something that you might be interested in with us, okay? All righty. So, sorry, let me move my little thingy down here so I can see my screen. So, what is trauma? Right? So the Merriam-Webster Dictionary definition of trauma is a very difficult or unpleasant experience that causes someone to have mental or emotional problems, usually for a long time. So typically when we think about, trauma, sometimes we go like, way to the most extreme thing that we can think about. Sometimes we talk about PTSD and we think about, veterans and things like that. But the spectrum of traumatic experiences, can vary. So it can go from things like a natural disaster, domestic, family violence, physical abuse, sexual abuse. But sometimes it can be things that we don't often think about may cause a traumatic, trauma for us, such as like a car accident, right? So that's an incident that can cause somebody serious bodily harm, whether it's a, severe accident or a minor accident. Sometimes that has an effect on how we feel about getting back in the car and just driving. And it might be uncomfortable, maybe the sudden death of a loved one, or, going through divorce, things like that. Some things that people may not consider or think about being a traumatic experience. Okay, so I just want you all to take a minute to reflect on some of the traumatic experiences either you or someone you know may have been exposed to. And I'm going to give you a few seconds just to kind of think on that. And I welcome you to share in the chat. Again, it can be something that is public to everyone to see, or if you just want me to see it, you can just send a chat separately, but please feel free to share. I'll give you a couple seconds to think on it. Okay, so we have someone who says a car accident, witnessing their daughter being strangled by their father, household with a lot of fights, childhood domestic violence, I'm assuming is what that says. So yeah, these are great. These are a lot of things. Some are really serious, and I can definitely understand how that would have an effect, on your day-to-day function. And so one of the things that we may notice about ourselves or about other people that we know that have experienced trauma is that they walk the world a little bit different, right? So like because of the traumatic experiences that they've had, they may be a little bit avoidant of certain situations, or they may feel depressed. They may seem like they're angry. Certain situations may trigger them. And because we either know ourselves or know that other person, we're able to make that connection and say that, okay, I'm pretty sure this person may be behaving in this way because of some of the trauma that they've experienced in their lives. We have another one. At the age of 12, I lost two most important people in my life. First, the love of my mother to my father, and the second, my uncle passing away from HIV. He was my everything. I'm so sorry to hear that. That's a lot of loss. And sometimes people often don't again realize how traumatic that experience is, to lose so many people, or even one person that you love and that you care about. So thank you so much for sharing that. So I want to move into the next slide. So these are some of the traumatic experiences that are often experienced by children. Again, some things that we may not pay attention to or may not consider to be a traumatic experience, but they are. And especially for a child's developing brain, their brain starts to make connections in certain ways from a very young age, because this is when they're soaking up everything. This is when they're learning everything. And it determines how they perceive things in the world and how they respond to those things. So some of that we see: sexual, physical, emotional abuse. And I know that some people have mentioned certain situations like that in the chat already. the fighting, constant fighting at home. Sometimes it doesn't have to necessarily be like something that's physical, they don't have to see mom and dad physically going at it, but sometimes it's just the constant arguing and things like that that kind of may create an environment that they don't feel so safe at home. Neglect is a big one. So sometimes the parents are not home or nobody's home to take care of them. Sometimes they may go, days without eating or having their basic needs met. Alcohol, substance abuse in the home. And so this one is I feel is more common that people may not notice or believe that it's having an effect on their kid. Is, one of their parents may be struggling. One of their parents may be struggling with a substance use disorder, and they are very well aware that something is not wrong with mom or dad or grandparent. And it kind of causes an uneasy or unstable foundation for them. Wow. Sorry, I'm catching some of your comments and I appreciate them a lot. I see that it says both parents deceased by age 8, all of those for your 8-year-old foster son. So that's a lot for an 8-year-old to carry, Gang violence is another one. Sometimes an older sibling or sometimes it's just in the environment. They may live in a neighborhood that is kind of gang infested, you know what I mean? So they don't have that feeling when they walk out of their home that they may be safe, or they know that somebody in their home might be involved, and it may have already caused certain issues in the home where some kind of violence has happened with the family or with the people that they love. Parents being arrested or incarcerated. So this can be, simply seeing, one of their parents being taken away by the police, or having an incarcerated parent and having to go and do the visits and going through that process of seeing their parent, locked up. So I'm going to show a video. The video is about 15 minutes long, and it was put on by the Office of the Attorney General of the state of California, and it's called Exposure to Violence on a Child's Developing Brain. And so it's going to kind of go through some of the things that, how those traumatic events have affected the child's brain and the development of the brain. And then you'll see some people give examples of kind of what their experiences were like with trauma in their households. Okay, so bear with me because I need to get this video started. And it seems a little old, but it's really not that old. I don't know why it looks so old. And are you guys able to hear? Yes, okay, great.
Because of the way the brain works, you will always remember your very first roller coaster ride. Storing these new experiences is one of the brain's main jobs. In fact, your brain creates a mental blueprint of every new experience you have. A blueprint for any new touch is stored in one part of the brain. A blueprint for any new sound in a different part. And a blueprint for any new sight in still another part. But as powerful as that first roller coaster ride was, it can't compete with the lingering effects of your brain's earliest experiences. Although you have no conscious memory of this part of your childhood, it is these very first experiences that literally become the building blocks for your whole life.
Unlike other organs, the brain is undeveloped at birth, and it is waiting for experiences to shape how it will develop. The amazing thing about the human brain is that the younger you are, the more sponge-like your brain is, which is the reason that children in 3 years can learn language, can learn to walk, can do all kinds of incredible things. But the very same biological sponginess that allows us to rapidly acquire language is also the same sponginess that makes young children more vulnerable to trauma than older children.
We have the opportunity to do police ride-alongs to a domestic violence situation, and so this was actually the first call I ever rode along. It was dinner time, and they were having spaghetti for dinner. It was dripping down the walls, the kitchen table was overturned, and we had 3 children in the household. Looking at this whole situation at the time, we said, no evidence of physical harm, the kids are fine. We learned differently, of course. The boy in the corner was classic behavior that we see with kids who have had chronic exposure to violence. He would just completely zone out, numb out as things started to get scary. The 6-year-old little girl on the chair blames herself for what's going on, but actually it was 4 years later that we really appreciated who had some of the most profound or severe harm coming out of this situation, and that was the 6-month-old baby who was now 4.5 and had seriously injured another child in preschool.
It's literally the opposite of the way most people think about this. Most people think young children, they don't really understand what's going on and they're resilient, but the fact is, if anybody's impacted more severely, it's the younger child.
The brain is put together like building blocks in a sense. Those first blocks that go together are the more primitive area, the survival brain.
The brain develops from the bottom to the top and from the inside out, so that the normal development of the top part of the brain depends upon healthy development of lower parts of the brain. The top part of the brain, where you do all of your thinking, is the part of the brain that is most changeable, easiest to modify. But unfortunately, if a child has developmental experiences of threat and exposure to domestic violence, the lower parts of the brain will be impacted and they're harder to change as they get older.
He was never physically abusive, but he was verbally abusive. There was lots and lots of screaming in front of the kids, berating, putting me down, and they pretty much heard it all.
Children exposed to domestic violence, children who witness their parents fighting, literally are experiencing a state of fear. And when this happens, the systems in your brain that are involved in thinking at the top part of your brain are literally shut down. It changes the brains of these children.
My son has seen and heard a lot of the violent outbursts. He was experiencing night terrors, and that was probably his way of dealing with it, because in his waking state, he didn't know how to articulate at 2.5 years old. So it was coming through, when he was asleep.
When kids are chronically stressed, one of the problems that we see is difficulty in attachment, in bonding, because they're so focused on survival. It's hard for them to reach out and connect with others.
My oldest boy went through a stage where he would bully his younger brother and seemingly laugh in glee. He was not remorseful or had no empathy that he could actually make someone cry. Many phone calls of him being disruptive in the classroom. He was a very bright kid, but that's when I knew that he was heading toward trouble.
A lot of these kids get labeled as being, bad, difficult, defiant. This is a very natural response to their circumstance. What the child is doing is a survival strategy for them, but it creates behaviors that are very difficult in the classroom. When they're in a crisis mode, they can't learn.
The tragic reality of children growing up in domestic violence is that they end up with mental health problems at a rate higher than children who are actually the direct victims of physical abuse.
My mother was a victim of domestic violence. My father was an alcoholic, a drug user, and it's just a cocktail for for a bad living environment for children. My brother, he looked like he was crying on his way home. Me not knowing, I was just a careless little 6-year-old, seeing him climb up to my mom's medicine cabinet. I asked him what he was doing, and he boldly said, I'm killing myself. 8-year-olds don't talk like that. The first person I thought to call was my best friend's mom. By the time she came down to our apartment, he had a butcher knife in his hand. He was just cutting himself all over his body, and I was just bawling, just crying. There was nothing I could do to help. My brother was crying. He didn't want to be there. He was trying to run out. But I had already known that my home, wasn't my home. You know, it wasn't a place where I felt safe.
Childhood exposure to violence is about living in a threatening, scary environment that may escalate to physical violence, but it often doesn't have to. It's the chaos, the uncertainty, the fear of being in a home where things aren't okay. Very interesting talking about the roller coaster, because that's what we hear from adult survivors who are in violent households and also the children. The hard part for them, I think, is thinking about what is normal instead of this up and down life of being in a violent, threatening relationship.
Growing up in my home, there were 6 children. My mother and father, unfortunately, fought like cats and dogs. As a result of that, 2 of my brothers ended up being batterers. I have 2 sisters. Even today, they date men that batter them.
Exposure to violence is a lifetime legacy. We see that adults who have had negative childhood experiences often have coping behaviors that can be unhealthy. That certainly has huge effects on how one is going to parent.
It's really important for parents to understand that their internal state, whether it's calm, or whether it's alert engagement, or whether it's frustration and anger, whether it's sadness, depression, the baby absorbs these internal states.
I have been in the moment with that sense of helplessness and hopelessness and stress and anxiety and rage. It really damages the brains of small children to be under a constant level of stress and anxiety. Every day I hope that I haven't damaged my kid in any way.
They need to see from you as a parent how to deal with stressful situations in an appropriate manner. Being rational, not resorting to violence to deal with situations. Your children are going to learn how to deal with stress from you.
Luckily, my older son is verbal enough and is old enough now that we have conversations about how did it make you feel when that was going on? Was that scary for you? Yeah, and validating that.
The biggest thing that helps children exposed to violence is to be able to talk about their feelings, get those critical messages. It's not your fault.
Any conflict, I'm able now to stop before I add to it. I'm able to step away rather than trying to solve it at that moment in a state of heightened anger.
Just try not to go through it alone. If you have a strong support system, and know what avenues you have available to you, in case you do need to get out. I was glad that we got help when we did.
One of the great things about brain science that we've learned is till the day you die, you have the ability to add new neurons in your brain, that the brain is more like skin in the sense that it can rewire and heal itself in the most important area, the cortex. We have the capacity to heal and do better. The biggest thing we can do for kids exposed to violence is how many healthy adults can they connect to.
I did a lot of my childhood in other people's homes, so I saw what positive relationships were about. I saw my friends were normal, they didn't have the rage I had. Seeing parents that were together, that showed affection. Home dinners where everybody sat together. Those are the things that I realized were important. And instead of being envious, I incorporated it into my life. I wanted to be a part of that.
I know school is what made a difference for me. The teachers, the attention I got, letting me know that I could be somebody and I could do something.
In fact, my oldest son, his teachers, all 6 of them were very instrumental in coming forward and providing him support when he needed. They allowed him to be homeschooled to give him time to heal.
The hardest part about being a parent now is trying to be different than how my parents raised me. Am I being a good father? What do I need to do to help you feel safe in your home?
That's the part, the brain development part, that I think we want him to know what normal is for us. And normal is having people who support you and who love you and who want to take care of you. And that we want that to be his normal life.
It's one of those pay me now or pay me later. And the truth is, children who are good at self-regulation, good at self-soothing, don't cry very much, and end up being, if you will, successful, are children who have had incredibly attentive early caregiving, which some people, unfortunately, think of as spoiling. It's exactly the opposite. Rather than spoiling the newborn, what you're doing is you are building in healthy self-regulation.
So those are the things that I want to create an environment for my baby where he gets the benefit of what I've learned from all these experts and also other parents. And believe me, they're experts too.
The most important thing that parents need to understand is that the brain of their child will become exactly what the child was exposed to. If you want your child to be kind, then you have to be kind to your child. If you want your child to be good at self-regulation and not lose their temper, you have to not lose your temper. And that's the beauty of the human brain. It is a mirror to the child's developmental experience.
Okay. Alrighty. Can everyone hear me? Yes.
I can.
Okay, great. Any thoughts? I would just want to see if you guys are willing to share your thoughts about the video and what you saw.
Absolutely. Yes. So, maybe mute me on your end or lower your volume. Sorry, even though we're far apart, we still get the echo. I had watched a video like this. It's similar, but I had learned early, like when I was taking psychology, that, you know, you kind of get what you put in, was kind of like the gist of it, right? Anywhere you go, if you're at the work site or if you have, you know, friends or siblings. But what I learned on my own is what he said. If you want your child to be kind, you have to show them kindness because they don't know what it means to be kind. And, you know, if you want your child to be respectful, you have to provide them that respect so they know what that is. So when you say, well, you need to be respectful, and the child's staring at you with a glazed look, okay, what does that mean? You know, and they have no clue. But if you're providing them with respect, and as they grow, you can say, well, I appreciate your thoughts, or let's use your ideas, you know, and then as they get older, you can say, you know, I really respect what you said, and maybe you disagree. And then that's no longer like a head-butting thing. Right. So that then they can understand that wherever they go, there will be changes, there will be, you know, disagreements, but it doesn't have to turn into a violent situation, either verbally or physically or even internally, because a lot of people internalize all of that, and then it's, you know, it's no good. But
right.
I was just excited to hear that. I'm like, yes, spoiling your child is not bad as long as you do it the right way. And you know, that's what I've been told. It's like, oh my gosh, you're like always hovering over your kids. And I'm like, okay, I don't know their passwords to their phones. I don't know their passwords to their computers. And that is trust. I said, so everything else, yes, I want to know what you're texting, who you're texting to. I want to know what email you're sending, who you're sending it to. And I want to know the music you're listening to and what friends you're Zooming with or playing a video game with, you know, things like that. So it's like, oh, you're a helicopter parent. Okay. Judge me the way you want.
Right.
I'm thankful to the Lord that I'm not dragging my kid out of some guy's bedroom, that I'm not having to go to jail to bail out my kid, or that God forbid, I'm in the emergency room with my child because they made the wrong choice. So call me what you want, but I'm grateful to the Lord that whatever effort I make, thank God so far, has proven to be positive. And parents just don't get, I don't want to say recognition, the proper recognition, but they don't get the proper support when they are actually being a supportive parent. And if you're not there, well, you're the negligent parent. You weren't there. You didn't ask. You didn't go through their backpack. So it's like parents are not given like some grace,
Right.
You're kind of damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
If you don't.
Sorry.
Yes. No, I appreciate so much for sharing. And it's funny what you brought up. It made me think of how parents would say, do as I say and not as I do. And we know that that is not how it works, right? It's not how it works, because the example that you set is what they're going to follow, not necessarily just because you tell them to do something. It's the example that you set. They're going to follow behind what it is that you do. So if you display, that you're argumentative and that you're aggressive and that, you are not kind to other people, those are the things that they take in, but if you treat them with respect, you treat them with kindness, you show, kindness towards other people and caring towards other people, those are the things that they're going to replicate. Yeah, I have someone in the chat who said, I literally just had that same conversation with my dad. Show me, don't tell me. And it was hard. Yeah. Sometimes it's a little old school thinking, Yes. And also showing how to recover when you make a mistake. And I know that can be such a difficult thing to do, even in relationships. Is something that I am working on myself right now, is, just being able to say, hey, I apologize, for something that I did, or and being okay with that, with the other person taking their time to accept that from you and not getting angry, say, hey, I said I'm sorry type of situation. And then it's not, the reaction or the interaction that you should be having. And when you have children in your home, those are the things that they pick up on all of that. Yeah. Great. Thank you so much for sharing. Did anyone else want to share their thoughts or comments in the chat about the video? No. And sorry, I can only see one person at a time right now. So let me see if I can look any further. Yes, I love that. I love that the brain can heal, and it gave me hope. I like that too, right? Because we think sometimes, especially like we're having the conversation about going to therapy, or what are the things that I can do to heal from my past traumas and things like that. Sometimes it's kind of like, it seems kind of far-fetched, or it may seem like, well, what does that look like? But to see in the video that your brain is actually reconnecting and making different connections, while you're doing that process of trying to heal yourself. So it's actually, it actually makes a difference. And so that's a great thing. Okay, Joanne, go ahead.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I enjoyed that video because what I'm working on, and it gave me some more thought, because I'm working on putting together programming and sessions to help undo a lot of the damage, especially focusing on the African American community. We have been traumatized by so many different levels, and I like how it clearly helped understand that, these impressions start so early, but I'm looking at how do we kind of begin to undo things. I remember as I was a foster parent for like 5 years, and the young man that came to became severely depressed. One, because they took him away from his mother at 13 years old.
Yeah.
And then he was already having trouble. They just really, really unsettled the poor child. But then, to go through the trainings that they tell you that you have to, for every hurt, you have to do at least 5 interventions, positive interventions, to kind of offset that. So when you look at the wider scope of people and how long this has been happening, because we've known about trauma, but we've never really done anything about it, besides study and talk. So how, I'm curious to find out, and I would love to find out interventions that we're doing. Like, I just came up with the name of a project, because Let's Make It Happen does social change, where we pull together the assets that we have and the people. Because a lot of times, like they say, what about the supportive parents? What about the people? We keep throwing things at them, but we never make sure that they have time to sit with it so they can make the change. So yeah, I'm looking, I'd love to stay involved with this, because what your things are, all your areas are the areas of reality now. Yeah, areas of reality. And because I'm fortunate that I have 2 grown daughters. I don't know how fortunate, but we now talk about the things that happen in our household, because I was a single parent. So that was a whole bunch, and it's amazing the things that I did that my kids still have trauma about, although we had the best of intentions.
Yeah.
Just like, and I love how that one part of that said that we're in the mode of trying to survive, that we don't realize a lot of the things that go on. So, it's not always intentional that people do things, but we've gotten stuck in such a mode of survival that we're perpetuating some things. This is a wonderful session.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. And it brings it brings to me, and I've been to therapy myself. I think everybody should go to therapy. And one thing that my therapist said to me was, everybody's parent messes them up to some extent, and it doesn't mean that, like you said, that it was something that was intentional, right? Like, we have our own experiences as adults that we go through, and sometimes, unfortunately, it has a negative effect on how we raise our children. And like, it was mentioned before, well, then how can we heal those situations? You know what I mean? Nobody is perfect. And like Sophia had brought up, like, we're expected to, like she said, damned if you do, damned if you don't. So it's kind of like, I'm doing the best that I can. And that's all that we can do as human beings, right? Is do the best that we can, because none of us are perfect. We're going to make mistakes, and we're going to make mistakes when it comes to raising our children. So when we have, those extra, risk factors, whether it is being a single parent, or, having some kind of issue unforeseen that happens in your home, those also affect your children. And as we as adults are trying to figure out how to navigate that ourselves, we're also having to try to pay attention to, how is this affecting my child, and how do I do my best to prevent these things from affecting them, right? And so I think that was a very great point. And there are a lot of resources out there, and maybe each of, everybody can share, and we can talk about it some more towards the end of the session. Some things that are, that you guys may know, or that we may know, people, part of our team may know some resources or interventions to help against that. But I agree that sometimes it just takes some time to let it sit and let it process. And I know that being a foster parent is not easy. I have a cousin who is a foster parent, and I've heard many of her stories and the things that happen. So I totally commend you for doing that, because I know it's not easy. And I know that sometimes the process that you have to go through to kind of put you in a training for welcoming, this child, who has certain issues into your home, it doesn't always prepare you for what you're going to see, or for, the behaviors that they're going to display, and how to deal with that. But again, I think it's so great that you took the opportunity to welcome somebody into your home. And there are a lot of things that, we may need to do as a society or even just in our field to better prepare for these types of situations. Yes, I love it. Let's see. Yes, Regina.
So I'm a nursing student right now, and we're in our community health program. And I really enjoyed our very first lecture earlier this week. And they were talking about the Erickson's developmental levels and how we really need to catch these kids at the 5 to 11 age, because if they don't master that level, they either become a victim or a perpetrator. And then speaking to our upcoming families, I have found that the most important thing is stability, which, like we were talking earlier about us regulating our own emotion. It's hard for me because I too was a foster kid. So I have my own trauma that hasn't completely healed. I don't know if it ever will, but just me moving forward in life to get here to 56 years old, to be working on my bachelor's degree in registered nursing, to always be pushing forward. My foster mom was very stable for 3 years of my life. And my grandmother, we were talking about how our mothers mess us up. Well, my grandmother was always my, what do you call that? Like that rock in the ocean that the lighthouse, that you keep your focus on, because she never moved. My mom was all over the place, moving and moving and moving. And my mom claimed that my grandmother, put her in Catholic school. They were poor all the time and damaged their lives. And all I'm looking at is a woman who wanted better for her children, who worked all her life for Bank of America, and she stayed the course. She never veered from the course. Her children's behavior did not allow her to veer from the course. I ended up taking care of her in her later years. She's my godmother as well. But I just wanted to share that a daughter might have a different experience of a granddaughter, which like I said, saw her as the lighthouse. She stayed the course and she stayed stable. She wasn't my mom, who was all over with her emotions and her jobs and blaming everybody for everything that went wrong. And my grandmother just stayed quiet. She let my mom do whatever my mom was doing. So that's what I'm hoping to give my foster son. I actually wasn't planning on taking anyone in, but he's a blessing. And then when they were talking in the video about your internal state, I see him. I see the gentle soul that he is, and he can't hide from me. He's so beautiful.
Yeah.
But yet he is too struggling at school, causing harm. I'm like, how is my perfect angel causing harm at school? It's like, and you can't understand it. But as soon as he walks through those school gates, he's in survival mode. He's trying to keep up with his peers. He doesn't, everything falls out of his head. And that sweet personality just takes a back seat to this person who needs to do battle at the school ground. So it's like, my therapist for him recommended this class, and, I kind of already know it, but it's nice to have a platform where we can discuss this and kind of share with each other what we saw, like Joanne was saying. Like, what are those key points? So for me, at this very moment in my life, is help him master this developmental level, to be stable, and to regulate my own emotions. So that's what I'm working on.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, thank you so much for sharing. And that is so important, because it brings us back to the discussion that we were having about how the child will replicate or mimic what they see. So if you are that stable person in their life, you're something that's constant, and they know that, okay, no matter if I, do well, or if I do something that may be disappointing or, not so good, then I always know that my foster mom is going to be the same. She's going to respond the same to me. She's going to love me the same. She's not going to flip on me and be a whole different person. And sometimes they come from that background where it's like, I don't know what I'm going to get when I walk in the door. I don't know what I'm going to get from my parent. I don't know what it is that I'm going to see. And so they don't have, they're not able to have that stability. And so when you are having, when that's conscious in your mind, that I need to be able to regulate my own emotions, so that he's able to see that, and so that he is able to know that should something happen, I'm going to be here. I'm always going to be here for him in the way that he needs me to be. He'll recognize that. And I see that in the comments, somebody posted, and I'm not even sure if this was you, Regina. Sorry, I'm just trying to do my best to toggle. That he said that the brain can develop new neurons, but that it shuts down when the bottom part is exposed to DV. How can we help children develop new neurons? And so part of that is, of course, none of this is going to happen overnight. As much as we wish that it does, that the healing process, oh, in a week, I'm going to be better and everything's going to be great. It doesn't happen that way. And sometimes when we build this wall of defense, or we build, you know what I mean? All these experiences, how do I protect myself from these things? Because that's what happens, right? We start to go into that survival mode, that part of the brain, you know what I mean? That's instinct. That's what we go into, because there's always an attack, right? So we have to build that defense. And what we need to do is start having to slowly pick that apart and pull down those different, bricks, whatever they may be, that caused you to put this wall up, right? Before we can even start to rebuild, And so what it is a lot of times with the children is that we have to take those small opportunities, you know what I mean? To show them the nurturing, and to show them this is how you regulate your emotions and things like that, so that we can slowly build, a different foundation. So I'm going to move on to the next slide.
I also wanted to share with you really quickly, when you want to see the whole group, sometimes you can like turn the screen share off and have the discussion and then turn it back on. That might help.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I'm trying to look at the chat and have some of your faces here, and then stay here. I will try that too as well. Knowing me, I'll probably not know how to put it back up. So really fast, coping skills, right? So this is something that some of you can take home, especially you who have foster children. And I'm sure some of these already. But relaxation exercises, right? So this can look like deep breathing, muscle relaxation, or meditation. One that I like to do is body scan, where and a lot of these things you can just go on YouTube, okay? And they'll do guided meditations or guided muscle relaxation. So, because sometimes when you first go into, you're like, I don't know what this is, until you get the practice in. So really quickly, I would just like for us to take a second to practice some deep breathing, if you guys are all willing. So if you have anything in your hand, just put it down. Try to sit up in an upright position, feet flat on the floor, and close your eyes. And I'm going to do my best to guide you through this breathing. So we're going to do 4, 6, 8. Okay. You are going to inhale through your nose for 4 counts. You're going to try to hold for 6 and exhale through your mouth for 8. Okay. So we're going to inhale. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Exhale big through the mouth. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's try again. 2, 3, 4. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Out. Sorry. 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're going to do one more time. Inhale for 4, hold for 6, blow out for 8. And I'm not going to count this time so I can do it with you, okay? And in. Hold. Out. Good. How's everybody feeling? Good. So that's definitely one way to learn to do the deep breathing exercise. They have many and plenty of different types. that you can do. Again, muscle relaxation, meditation are others that we can do. Journaling is something, and these we can use for ourselves or for our children. You know what I mean? Journaling is something that's really great. Writing down how you feel every day, writing down if you know what you're grateful about, things like that. Physical exercises, sports, running, dancing, like I said, that I need to get back into, you know what I mean? Gets your endorphins moving and gets you feeling better. Listening to music or, you know, art, drawing, coloring, painting, things like that, just to get your mind kind of in a better place, or being able to get out the way that you're feeling. Talk to a friend or another adult. So as far as for children, I know that sometimes we feel, sometimes children don't exactly feel that comfortable speaking to their parent, as much as we try to develop that relationship, you know what I mean? Sometimes they're like, ooh, I don't really want to tell my mom that, or, ooh, you know, I don't want to really talk to my dad about that. So placing other adults in their lives who they feel comfortable discussing certain things with. You know what I mean? So this can be a teacher or a mentor or a coach. For me, it was my aunt. I knew that I can go to her and I can tell her whatever, and she wasn't going to go back and tell my mom, and I was still going to get some good advice. It's good for them to talk to a friend, yes, but sometimes certain things, we want to make sure that an adult is looking out for their safety and for their well-being in a different way. Okay.
Can I say something real quickly about the art part?
Yes.
So it is amazing. It does help children as well as it does adults. My child and my mom, my child is 17 and my mom is 72. And the healing is tremendous regardless of the age. However, I also wanted to mention that sometimes children are mistakenly labeled as kids that don't want to pay attention or aren't listening in class because they're actually doodling. They doodle during class. And so there's been some studies, and my child currently has what they call a 504 plan. So if you have a child or a foster child, or you have a sibling who has kids, whatever it might be, look into the 504 plan. It protects the children at school so that they not necessarily have a learning disability like an IEP would protect them. But my daughter, for example, she has to be doing more than one thing. She just, it doesn't matter. It's the ADD.
Yeah.
The other child has to be doing more than two things, and that's the ADHD. So for both of them at school, they have a 504 plan that protects them. It doesn't matter if it's an assembly, a test, a classroom discussion, a substitute teacher. If they're doodling or there's a doodle on their homework assignment or a doodle on their test, they're not being punished for it. And they actually can focus better on what's being said because their mind is kept busy somewhere else on the doodle. Now, I don't know scientifically how that works, but it works. So I just thought I'd throw it in there. Art is amazing. It can be the doodle, it can be coloring, whatever it is, little pencil, stick people, whatever they do. It's very helpful. And on that note, I want to thank you so much, Chris, for this, but I do have to get going.
No problem.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for sharing. And I think we're going to be posting the video. So if you want to finish it later, you're more than welcome to do that. Okay.
All right.
But thank you so much for sharing, and thank you for joining.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
She mentioned the 504 plan?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay.
504, yes. And I know when I worked in the school a little bit, they did have those two things, 504 and the IEP. IEP, I think, is more so for learning disability.
Yeah,
but
I'm familiar with the IEP, but the 504, a lot of
sometimes they
kids
just need a little bit
accommodations.
Accommodations. That's the word I was looking for.
I'm gonna tell you,
And
as much as I've done, as much work as I've done with LAUSD for kids that had ADHD and IEPs, I've never heard of the 504.
504, yeah.
Okay, it's a really well kept secret. So what you do is you speak to your son or daughter's counselor at school. You let them know that you want to have a 504 plan assessment, And then all the teachers will chime in. Oh, yeah, we've noticed this behavior, or we've noticed that behavior, or they have an excellent, behavior in class. That doesn't mean that they don't need the extra support with the accommodations. So find out from your child if it's the doodling, or do they need to have like tissue at their desk? Is that like a safety thing for them? It's so intricate, but it's very individual. So the 504 plan meeting will have yourself, the student, the school nurse, a psychiatrist or psychologist if they have one, and all of their teachers.
Yeah.
So I wish you luck.
What made me think of it also is in the video, it said how children act out so much, because of pent up frustration. So if you give them a space and a grace at school, it may help offset it. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for placing the link. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Oh my goodness. Yes, thank you so much for sharing that. It is a great resource. And I know that some years ago, I did have kids who were on a 504. So you can definitely ask about that. Okay, I'm gonna move on so that we don't run out of time. And reading is one that I didn't mention, but of course that's very calm and quiet. And we all know that it might put you straight to sleep, right? Okay, so a very quick case study. This is a child that I used to see. I am not going to use her real name. This is we kind of, put some things in there to protect her identity, for confidentiality reasons, okay? So this girl's name was Samantha, okay? She was 11 years old. And she got referred due to a cutting incident at school. And so cutting had been like I have been out of the schools for a little while, but cutting had been kind of a thing that we were seeing. And we had to kind of weed through who was like a serious case, and then who was like cutting for like sincere, reasons that we needed to be concerned about. And so it did turn out that she was suicidal. She was having suicidal thoughts. And so we started to see her. And after doing, the assessment with mom, we found out that she did have history of sexual trauma from her biological father. I don't think that she was raped by him, but there were just very inappropriate molestation type things happening. And there was also domestic violence in the home between mom and dad. And so she was privy to that. There was an older stepsister who lived in a home who there was some allegations that he had done something to them. And then there was a younger sibling in the home as well. I think she was about 4 or 5 at the time. And so she had that, kind of going on. Mom and father eventually separated. There was a restraining order against him. And then later the biological father started to threaten, to kidnap her from school, that he was going to take her to Mexico, all these things. He had even showed up to the school one time. So she was very fearful of that. And so she became very withdrawn and very depressed. She was shy, but she was very smart. And she was still social, she had friends and things like that. But she had difficulty expressing her feelings and communicating, especially with mom about, what was going on. So with therapy, Samantha learned how to speak about her experiences. She learned how to utilize various coping skills to alleviate her depressive state. So, learning when she is feeling sad, what are the things that she needs to do, or what are the coping skills that she needs to put into place for her to learn to, to feel better. She did some joint sessions with mom to learn effective ways to communicate with mom, let mom know kind of how she was feeling, and for mom to appropriately respond to her with patience and with empathy, because sometimes mom would get frustrated at that. She's like, she's not telling me anything. I don't know how to, where do I go from here? What do I do if she's not telling me anything? So we had to learn how to, they both had to learn how to communicate effectively with each other, so mom would know what was going on, and she wouldn't be as worried as she was. And also she eventually developed like, this confidence, and she joined like the after school program, and she did this performance. She actually had like a little solo. It was really cute. And she did a really good job. And so with all of the tools that she and mom got from therapy, she was able to do better, And of course, these are things that she can take with her and continue to practice, because we know that it's not always a linear path to healing, but that she would always have those tools in case anything came up. Okay, so really quick, just some different types of therapy when it comes to children, childhood trauma. So we actually have people on our staff who provide or who have experiences in all of these different modalities. So the first one is play therapy. Play therapy is primarily between the therapist and the client, and the relationship between the two is very important to develop during play therapy. It is child-centered play that allows children to choose various items to play with, which often encourages them to play out their emotions and experiences. Other modalities often utilize play therapy. The relationships between the child and the therapist, like I said, is important. This is good for ages 3 through 12, okay? There is some child and parent psychotherapy, which is a modality that is for both parent and child. I guess that's self-explanatory. So it integrates multiple theories, but primarily utilizes attachment theory. And the goal is to enhance and support the relationship between caregiver and child to restore the child's behavioral, cognitive, and social functioning. And this is good for ages 0 to 5. I believe that we start therapy at the age of 2. I think that we provide for parents. But again, this is, about attachment theory, things that we see very early on in the child's behavior of what their relationship is with the parent. Are they overly attached to the parent? Do they have an appropriate attachment relationship with the parent? Or do they have no attachment with the parent? And then PCIT, which is parent-child interaction therapy. This is also sessions that include both parent and child, where the parents learn techniques to assist their children in changing negative behaviors to positive behaviors. The method assists with parenting and language skills to help children regulate their emotions. This is implemented through relationship enhancement and discipline and compliance. And this is primarily for ages 2 to 7. So what you'll see here a lot of the time is the therapist is there, and they're mostly coaching parent through, the session and how to interact with the child. And then we have trauma-informed cognitive behavioral therapy. So I'm sure many of you may be familiar with CBT, and this is just an added perspective or viewpoint from trauma. So children and adolescents and their caregivers, they learn to process their trauma through psychoeducation, relaxation techniques, effective expression, mood regulation, trauma processing, and enhancing safety. Caregivers and their children can participate in joint sessions to reestablish and enhance relationships. This technique can be utilized with all age groups. So you don't necessarily have to be in the session, with the child. It can be just for you, or it can be just for the child, or you don't have to have a child. It can just be for anyone. And so that's really great as well. Let me check my chat. Okay. All right. So we're almost there. So what to look out for? So I'm sure I see that 2 of you already have foster children, so you may have seen some of these behaviors. But if not, these are some of the things that you can look out for if you feel like something may have happened or may be going on with your child, or if you notice some changes in their behavior. So children, they often display behaviors that differ from those of adults when they have experienced traumatic events, especially due to common lack of ability to express their feelings and their needs. We know that children are not always so verbal, so you may see changes in a different way. So you may see sleeping or eating disturbances. how we saw in the video about the woman who expressed that her 2-year-old was like having night terrors, from the things that he was seeing. So he was waking up in the middle of the night, crying and yelling and things like that. We may see some aggressive or sexualized behavior. Sometimes children who have experienced sexual trauma, they may act it out with somebody else, with another sibling, with a cousin, with a friend, somebody at school. And then, it kind of becomes noticed or it becomes an issue. And that's how we learn that they may have been through something that we either did know or didn't know. Avoidant, anxious, clingy, social isolation, difficulty trusting others, interpersonal problems. Sometimes we see that a little bit more with older kids, problems with emotional regulation and communication. Maybe they're having outbursts or tantrums, things like that. They're not able to regulate their emotions. Poor impulse control, defiance, or overcompliance. Sometimes those are the things that we see that are happening at school, like you mentioned, like, my kid is doing well at home, but then at school it may be a different situation. Or sometimes you'll see that they have low self-esteem, poor body image, shame, and guilt. All right. Yes, Joanne, sorry.
Chris, the part that the low self-esteem, we're seeing that in a lot of young children. It seems like it, but you can't really pinpoint the cause there. Like one young lady that comes to mind, she did something that fortunately her mother was vigilant and went and checked her computer. And this young lady was on the computer showing this young man her body, didn't even know him. And the bottom line was, she said, I have really low self-esteem and I did not want him to feel bad if I didn't do it. And this young lady has no reason. She has, anything she needed. Her mom takes her to counseling. She's involved. She's loved. But her thing was she has low self-esteem. What is happening to our children that they're not getting a good identity, self-identity?
I mean, I cannot speak to her specifically because, again, I'm not really sure what her experiences may have been, because sometimes somebody can just say something to you, especially with children. We have to be so careful with our words. Sometimes somebody can say one thing and that sticks in there, but I know that we've kind of moved into a new generation as well, where we're seeing how huge social media's effect is on children and their involvement online and what their beauty standards are and things like that. And so the world, unfortunately, is changing in that way. And we have to try to figure out how to navigate that. And, when it comes to the influence that it has on the children. And so I think part of that may be just to monitor, what it is that she's looking at, what it is that she's seeing on a regular, because sometimes it may not have been a specific person that told her something, but sometimes we know that this is what the look is right now, and I don't look that way, and I'm not getting the attention, so what is it that I have to do to get the attention that I feel like I need? And that goes, from a wide range, I feel like, of ages, unfortunately. And so, like Ms. Sophia was explaining earlier, having to monitor what your kids are doing and who they're talking to, and combating some of those thoughts that society is starting to place, I think, on the children and what their expectations should be, if she does have the amount of support.
Yeah, it's worth looking into because, that's what I'm saying. She's almost like the classic little kid. So it would be good. And it probably stems back to, because I noticed your interventions say 3 to 11. So probably something we need to start doing at 3 years old to get them to a healthy state at 13.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. All right, so what now? What do we do now? Sorry. There is hope. So if you feel like you or your child or other children that you guys may be working with are displaying some of these things, and you guys have already placed interventions and it doesn't seem like it's helping much, or parent and child may be struggling, therapy is definitely something that you want to look into. And we are offering free consultations, with our staff if it's something that you're interested in doing. It will be confidential. If you are somebody, again, that parents or children that you may be working with need these services, you can call or email at fullerlifeconcepts@gmail.com. Or they can call the phone number and they can speak to somebody to help them, navigate and figure out what's best for them. But again, like, you guys who have been responding are actually very well versed in a lot of the things that are out there, a lot of the interventions that are out there. And it's great to hear. I'm really glad to hear that you guys are on top of it, especially you who have foster children. It's really great. And I'm glad that you're supporting each other as well and giving some resources to one another as well. Any questions?
Where are you guys located?
So right now I know that we're doing virtual, and I'm gonna let Kim intercept here a little bit so that I make sure I'm getting it correctly, because I know that we were in office in the Lakewood area at first, but then since COVID, we've kind of not been in the office. I don't know eventually at what point we'll be moving back. And I know some people do request in-person services, but for the most part, we're doing virtual sessions.
Hi, Joanne, and thank you, Chris. That was absolutely accurate. We are doing virtual sessions. We pretty much covered Lakewood, Long Beach, Compton, LA, Bellflower. So we cover those areas. But we actually have started hiring professionals that are in other counties and other parts of Southern California. So we really have a wide reach. And so we are available if you want to make a referral or get more information.
Yeah, I'd love to refer the mom and the 13-year-old, because I don't think they've really talked about that in isolation between the two of them. And they have a very loving relationship, and I think that coming to talk to, a group like you guys would really help them unravel some things. Because yeah, I like your whole approach. It's actually holistic. It shows where I love the hope part. And it sounds like you guys would be a good place for them to come and have a neutral conversation to get them started. And I think she works in Bellflower, or they're in your region. Yeah. But then I'd love it. And then I'd love to actually interact with you guys more to find out what resources we have in the community. Because one of the things that we see that everybody doesn't fit into a program, aren't affiliated with a program. But the thing Let's Make It Happen is working on is to bring like a time or a session like you guys just did to help people see some of the reality, see that they're not hopeless, see that there's usually a cause behind where they are. And if they want to do something about it, there's assistance available so they can make their own, I call them pathways to wellness, to empower them. Yeah.
That's perfect, Joanne. And in the chat, I put a Google form in there. And it's twofold. One, it's to give feedback about the workshop this morning, but also at the end, there's a section to put in your contact information so we can reach out and connect.
Okay, because the purpose of this was really to introduce people to your services and to show you what's available and why it's so important. Am I correct?
Yes, yes. And to give some very valuable information to the community for free.
Yeah, and see, I would love to work with you guys, because that's really where it starts. Because, we're so wrapped up, we don't imagine that it's really that simple, and there are solutions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll fill my form out.
Thank you.
Love that. Thank you so much. Any other questions?
It says I need permission.
Oh, okay. Let me give you permission.
And me as well.
Okay. Let me get you guys permission.
I just wanted to say, I'm going to put it in the Google form, but I really appreciated this presentation, and even something as simple as doing the deep breathing, like having something that the 4-6-8, like that's something I can do with my foster son on a regular basis, and he could know that I'm doing it as well. Like, we always hear, okay, do your deep breathing. But we don't really always remember the steps. We've been taught many different ways to do deep breathing. But I'm just saying that I really appreciated actually doing it in this presentation. That was really nice.
Of course. Thank you so much. And how old is your foster son, if you don't mind me asking?
8.
8. Okay. Great. I know that, and he's old enough to do the one that we did. And I forgot to mention, I know we do the 5-finger one with kids who are younger. So because they might not be able to track those numbers and hold and all of that, we taught them how to inhale when you go up this finger and exhale down that finger, and they just trace their finger as they go. And that was something that we did for children who are younger. But definitely, and sometimes it's our participation with them that helps them learn to do it, instead of just saying, oh, you should need to go do this, so you can calm down.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes. So thank you so much for sharing that.
I updated the permission, so maybe we'll be able to complete the form now.
Yes.
Okay. So those are my references. And this is the last slide, just to show, again, if you would like to contact us, you can call this phone number. You can go to our website at fullerlifeconcepts.com. And again, if you have any further questions or ideas or want to connect, you can email fullerlifeconcepts@gmail.com. And I want to thank you all so much for joining us this morning and for your participation. It was wonderful. It was a great session, and I was so glad to hear from you guys participating and giving each other ideas and sharing your experiences and what's going on with your own life and with your children's life, because I know that's not always easy. So thank you so much for coming this morning and for sharing.